What's up, y'all? This is the Art Mentor. Today, I'm going to teach you how to create the most basic, rudimentary thing that we can do in hand building clay, which is how to create what's called a pinch pot. Now, a pinch pot is what one of these little bad boys look like, all right? What this means is that we're going to be creating by hand, not by the potter's wheel. We're going to be creating some little tiny bowls that we can put some stuffs in, all right? Now, with this, I have two different sizes. What size you're going to create is going to depend on you and how much clay you have or how much you want to do this, okay? Notice some slight differences between the curves in this, but they're essentially both the same thing. Now, of course, you can do this kind of stuff on the potter's wheel, but I'm gonna be honest with you, that takes a lot of time to figure out exactly how to do, and it takes a whole lot of failing at the potter's wheel to be able to create anything halfway decent. Now, if you're looking at these and wondering why some of these have some colors and stuffs on it, that's just simply because I also use these for my glazing demonstrations because they're just so simple. Both of these have been fired. I used some red clay for this. I did these a couple of years ago, just as a reference for my students, but today I'm going to be using some white clay to get this done. So let's do this. All right, y'all. To start, I'm going to be working with my white clay again, and I am going to take about a softball size piece of clay, okay? Now, you'll notice that this is already cubed up because I've already gone ahead and wedged it. If you have not watched my previous video on how to wedge your clay, stop, because if you do not wedge your clay every single time, it's a 90% probability it's gonna blow up, all right? So now let's get into this. In order to start with the pinch pot, what I need to inform you all on is this simple basic concept in ceramics. These are your best tools right here, all right? Y'all got them. So we wanna learn how to properly use just our hands to do a lot of things, because just using your hands as opposed to relying on tools all the time is going to save you actually a lot of time, and you're going to get stuff done really quickly the more you're able to master how well you manipulate these bad boys. So in creating a pinch pot, a lot of it is just based on, or at least the initial part of it is just all based on hand movements and how you position these. So to start off, what I want to do is I want to take this cube and turn it into a sphere. So simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my sphere. I'm going to hold my cube with a curved hand. I will then go ahead and hit it as well with a curved hand. And I'm going to specifically aim for the corners first of this cube shape as I'm turning it into a sphere. All right? Not a problem at all. Okay? So now, as I'm doing this, simple science behind what I'm doing. As I'm holding it with a curved hand, and I'm hitting it with a curved hand, I'm creating a curve from the force of my hand hitting it on this side and on this side at the same time. If I hold my hand flat and I'm hitting it, guess what's going to happen to this side? It's going to flatten out, right? So I want to make sure I'm always holding with the curve and hitting with the curve. Now, what you want to do, and I'm going to start to switch my hands as it starts to become a little easier. And what I basically want to do, y'all, is I just want to go ahead and, again, I want to turn this into a sphere. Now, people watching this, you want to make sure that if you have like a whole bunch of rings and stuff all over your fingers, you might want to take those off. I'm going to keep my wedding band on, but it's not really that big of a deal. It's going to make some minor impressions on it, and that's really not a big deal at all. But if you're the type of person that wears like 27 rings on your fingers, please take those things off. You're gonna make a whole lot of dents into this. It's actually gonna mess up the shape that we're gonna go for here. It's definitely gonna mess it up down the road, and I'll explain why later, okay? So basically now, I've gone ahead and I've created a pretty nice looking sphere here. This does not have to be the world's most gorgeous, awesome, amazing sphere, all right? But I do want it to be pretty good. Now, you are going to notice some rather large crevices like this form. That's again just from the clay folding in on itself while I'm doing this. This has already been wedged, and with the process I'm about to show you, this is not going to be a big deal. So what we want to do is we want to take our finger and just kind of smooth out any significant folds or crevices that appear. Now again, right there, you're going to notice all those little lumps. That's from my ring when it was hitting it. All right, if you have a lot of rings, that's what's gonna happen all over, and you probably wanna take those off. Generally speaking, working with clay, you probably don't wanna get anything too dirty anyways. If you've got, your late great-great-grandma's wedding ring on, you definitely don't want that thing getting messed up by this, because clay will wreck it, okay? So I'm just smoothing out a few significant ones that I'm seeing here, and then I'm gonna move on. Again, these little ring dents, I'm not too worried about them, okay? So now, we're gonna go into the next step of this. I got my sphere from my wedge clay. Holding it as such. What I'm going to do to show you above it, I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to plunge it into the center. Now, before you do this, here's something really, really simple that you can do to mess this up. Is a lot of times when people do this, they tend to arc their thumb backwards, particularly if you're like me and you can do the whole hitchhiker's thumb thing. You need to make sure that your whole finger, your whole thumb is straight all the way from knuckle to the tip of your finger. And there's a lot of weird things that we're gonna do in clay, especially in hand building. And we have to physically tell ourselves, we have to tell our brain, you can't do that, man. You gotta hold it like this, or you gotta position your fingers like that. It is weird, it feels really weird, but you gotta do it anyways. So, holding it again, I'm gonna take my thumb and make sure it's nice and straight. And I'm going to plunge it straight down there, all right? Now, a common question that gets asked is, how do I know how far down I go, all right? Now, here's the basics of it. You wanna be able to leave about somewhere between a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch at your base. That way, it's gonna create a really nice solid structure for it. Here's the basics of it. If you can hold it upside down, put your palm over it, and if you wiggle your finger, like I'm doing right now, I'm wiggling my thumb. If I can feel the tip of my thumb, I have gone too far. What I should do in that instance is I need to start all over. I need to wedge it, I need to turn it back into a sphere, I need to repeat this process. Now, here's my surefire way of figuring out how far in you need to go. So, with your thumb in there, all right, this is just where my thumb was, all right, look at where it is on your finger, all right? So mine is just below my first knuckle here, okay? So mine's right here. What I'm then gonna do is I'm gonna take it out and line it up. So I can see I have that much distance right there. Now, this, what I have, is actually, miraculously, I have done the perfect amount, okay? So again, all I did was, I put my thumb in there, and I saw, where does it line up? Where's the base of this go? I take out my thumb and I match it to that exact spot. I can use my fingers like so I can see how much distance I have. So again, I've got that much space. It's about a 1/2 inch right there. That is perfect, that's what you want, okay? If you have more than that distance there, more than this much distance, about a 1/2 inch there, 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch right there. If you can feel your thumb wiggle, you've gone way, way, way too deep, bro, and you need to start over. If you have not gone deep enough, you need to go ahead and put that back in and push more. Simple, okay? Now, the next step is we're gonna turn this little tiny eyeball-ish opening, doesn't it look like an eyeball? We're gonna turn this into the actual pinch pot. So how do we get it from here to here? This is about the same size of clay I use for this one. Really simple. But again, we have to tell our minds the correct way on how to do this. So here we go, y'all. I'm gonna show you this before I go ahead and I put my hands into any piece of this. So everybody, here's what y'all wanna do. You need to adopt this C shape, which means this. You're going to hold your 4 fingers like this, and your thumb is going to do this. So I'm going to adopt a curve with my thumb. Essentially what I need to do is this, almost like your little crab. You know what I'm saying? So everybody, you want a nice curve right here, and I'm gonna show you this again before I do it inside of what's going to be my pinch pot. It's a 3-step process, and it's pretty simple. But again, it feels weird. Your brain has to tell your hand to do this. It's not automatic, okay? So here's what you wanna do. You wanna, again, holding that C shape, you go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. When I do this, I'm gonna be holding my pinch pot upside down like this. So What I'm telling you to do, again, this is why it's called a pinch pot. I'm using a pinching technique, is I'm pinching top, middle, bottom, top, middle, bottom. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna repeat this process going all the way around as I spin my pinch pot, top, middle, bottom. Again, because I'm holding it upside down. As I'm gonna pinch that, I find that to be the easiest way. Now, here's the issue. A lot of times people will start it like this, and then it will quickly devolve into straight hand karate chop position. Don't do this, all right? If you do this, what's gonna happen is your walls are gonna get jacked up. Now, let me show you what this is gonna look like, okay? So I got my thumb in here. I'm putting it all the way down to the bottom, okay? Adopting a strong C shape. You need that C shape in your hand, okay? I'm gonna hold it a little bit and go 1, 2, 3, just like I showed y'all. 1, 2, 3, top, middle, bottom, top, middle, bottom, okay? And then I'm gonna spin it. Do the same thing. Top, middle, bottom, top, middle, bottom. I've been doing this for years. It still feels weird to tell my brain to hold my hand like this. It almost like kind of hurts a little bit at first, and then you just get used to it. It's like exercise. 1, 2, 3. Switch. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Very simple. 1, 2, 3. Okay? So you can see just by me doing this, this has started to happen. Now, you got to check yourself at this moment here. What you should be getting is a nice bell curve, all right? So what this means is very simple. It should go out and it should go back in, if that's the shape you want, okay? For people that are in my courses, this is always how I teach them to do it, okay? Because I do want a nice bell curve, all right? But if your walls, just to show you again, this is the wrong way to do it, unless this is the shape that you're going for. So if you were, conversely, if you wanted your walls to angle out, then you would hold that angle straight hand. 1, 2, 3. Same thing. If your walls start to look like this, and again, I'm making this strictly for people in my class, unless you're doing this at home yourself, whatever, then this is what's gonna happen to it. Again, if I hold my hand straight, 1, 2, 3. Take a look at the difference, okay? So you can, in making pinch pot style products like this, you can create this kind of curve, but what I'm looking for is a nice smooth curve like that, and I can only get this out of a strong C shape. If this is what is happening to yours right here, just correct it. You're just gonna take it and you're going to adopt that C shape, and I'm just like pulling, using my wrist here, and I'm just pulling it in a little bit, and it's a very easily corrected mistake. Now that I have this, here's what I wanna do. I wanna go ahead and I wanna do this again. I'm gonna push a little bit less, all right? With this pinch style technique, you wanna make sure that you're really monitoring your pressure. Overall, the thickness of your wall on any kind of pinch pot should be about 1/4 of an inch, about that big right there, okay? You wanna think 1/4 inch is like a pretty thin piece of plywood. If you go too thin on this, it runs the risk of it just collapsing in and of itself. You'll develop holes, it'll crack too, especially if your base is thicker than your top, okay? So again, what we wanna do is hold that C shape, all right? I generally, when I do my second time, I like to flip these 2 fingers up, like rock out. I don't know why, I just always have done it. Here we go, 1, 2, 3. Again, I'm always, whenever I'm adjusting my walls, I'm always holding a C shape to this. It's much easier to do it this way. Another thing you wanna do is make sure you're getting your thumb all the way in there into the base. A lot of times what rookies will do is they'll put it halfway up the wall, and then they have like a super, super thick base. You don't want that, okay? So, 1, 2, 3, and I'm just doing this as I feel it. Now, if you're wondering, are my walls too thick? It's really easy. Just kind of lightly pinch it in some areas, and you'll feel like, oh, this is too thick. Ah, that's a little thin. I don't want to touch that too much. Oh, this is really thick. So there I need to push in a little bit more. It's pretty easy once you get the hang of this. And at this point, like, I'm literally just feeling it out for where my thick spots are. I can hold a conversation at this point. I'm just sort of on my autopilot mode a little bit more, all right? So again, I'm just holding that C shape as I go around this beast here, okay? I'm making sure that I got my finger all the way down to the bottom, and we're good. Now again, check your base. If I can wiggle it and I can feel my thumb like I'm doing this on the inside, if I can wiggle this on the inside and I can feel that, I got a problem. And we'll need to address that later on, okay? So now, at this point, this is what we're looking at. Again, I got that nice strong bell curve to it. However, though, now we've got some new issues that have arisen. So y'all, check out that. Woo! This thing looks like it belongs in a crepey skin commercial, am I right? It's got all these cracks and stuff in it, and here's the basics of why that's happened. Clay dries out. Like I said in my previous video, y'all, clay wants to die the second that you take this thing out of the bag. You don't want that, to let that happen. So now what we need to do, you need to rehydrate it, okay? It's also stealing the moisture out of your hands. It's trying to get moisture however it can, all right? So to do this, y'all, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna be using a clay sponge for this, all right? One of these bad boys. I tend to cut mine in half because I like it. It's easier for me to smooth different things. So, and I'm using just a yogurt cup. You can get one of these Oikos yogurt cups anywhere, all right? If you're at home, you're gonna be needing one of these. You're gonna need to source it yourself because, yeah, just don't have that readily available. So, I'm using one of these clay ceramic sponges, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dip this in. I don't want this to be soaking wet. Like if I do this a little bit and it's pouring out, that's way too much. What you wanna do is wring it out so that it's just moist, all right? Now, as we're going to rehydrate ceramics, you need to develop the ability to monitor how much moisture you're adding to your piece. If you add not enough, it's gonna continue to crack like this. If you go ahead and you re-moisturize your projects, if you're spraying it down, if you're adding any kind of water to this, and it is dripping and it starts to feel like mud, you have gone way too far and you have over-soaked that thing. Don't do that. You need to be very cognizant of your moisture levels, okay? Because it's essential to your success in hand building ceramics, okay? So now taking this, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna move around like this, all the way around it. I really do recommend that you go around in circular motions when you're trying to create something that is going to be even and circular, okay? It'll help it, just these motions are gonna help it turn out the way that you want it to, all right? So this is what we're eventually gonna get to. And you'll notice like there's that big giant crack right there. And when I sponge over it, it's going to go away. All right, and all this is doing is it's reactivating the clay with its moisture, and it is going to, it's gonna just heal it up very, very nicely, okay? Your rim is gonna be your number one area of cracks, and that's very simple because it's the highest area where it tends to be the thinnest and air hits it fastest up top, okay? That's generally true with any ceramics piece. Anything high and thin, it's going to wanna die first. So, y'all need to just make sure that you are paying attention to that rim. Any of these big cracks, you can also start to smooth them out with your hand once you get some moisture back into these bad boys, okay? Just like I'm doing right here. And you'll nicely heal it all up. You wanna also go ahead and throw some on the inside as well. All right? Now, an interesting thing is gonna start to happen. And this aspect of ceramics freaks out some people, but it's something you need to get used to. I'm not sure how well this camera is gonna pick it up, but you're gonna start to notice on here, there's gonna be sort of like a sandy-ish looking texture on this. And with that, that is totally normal. I have seen people take obsessive amounts of time, like, I've seen people take obsessive amounts of time to try and wet this for a brief second and get that rough, sandy-ish texture gone. You won't. It's okay. You gotta just deal with it, all right? That is the grog that I mentioned in my last video, okay? It's a sandy-ish material that's inside of the clay, and this is what gives it its rigidity and form. Again, if you're gonna be wheel throwing, you're not working with clay with grog because you want it to be smooth. You want it to just glide across your hands. But when we're hand building, we need that in there. It gives it structure, it gives it form, it gives it rigidity. So now that I've done this, okay, what I want to start to do is I need to even it out. So I'm gonna just turn this around real quick, make sure that I have a nice rounded appearance to this. Like I said, that bell curve is what I'm shooting for here, okay? And now I need to still even this out. If you'll notice, as I turn this around, this is not looking good. It's all lumpy and bumpy stuff. So here's what I want to do. I want to introduce a new tool, and that's going to be this bad boy. This is called the kidney tool, okay? You'll notice because it looks like a kidney. This one is made out of metal. I like this one the best, personally. You can also use like an old credit card, old gift card, something like that. These work great too, especially in different circumstances. I'll talk about in some of my later videos here, okay? So with this, here's how this process goes. Before, and this is what I want you to remember, before you ever take any kind of large scale smoothing tool like this, we need to wet it, okay? So we're gonna use our sponge. Again, we use our sponge for wetting large areas, okay? It's important to remember there. I'm gonna introduce some other tools later on here. But for now, sponge tool is gonna be best for hydrating large areas. Now I'm gonna bust in this with my kidney tool, which is for large scale smoothing. There's some other tools we use later on for smoothing small areas, okay? Now with this, it's important to recognize this fact. This is straight and this is curved. If you take this and just rake across it, what do you think is gonna happen? Pretty obvious. This is going to turn into a straight edge. We don't want that. So holding your kidney tool the right way is essential here. What you wanna do is, I wanna get a curve to it. So I'm gonna take my kind of rock out motion right here, and I'm gonna use my pinky and my pointing finger, and I'm gonna turn it so that it is in the same curve as this. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start to rake across this, okay? There we go. As I do this, I'm gonna start to get a buildup on my kidney tool. Every once in a while, you'll wanna just take that and put it down, all right? I like to just build a nice little pile with it in case I ever need clay later on. Now, you'll notice that as I've done that, what happened there? I got those hard indent lines. That's again, just from using my kidney tool. If this is happening to you excessively, here's what's up. Or if it's starting to look like it's just scraping it all off a little bit too violently, then you need more moisture on this. So this is happening, I've identified it. I'm gonna again smooth it around in circles as such, and I'm gonna continue, I'm gonna move on from this. Again, more moisture on this, better. The more moisture you have on this, the easier this is gonna glide across it. This is what's gonna get rid of all of those lumps and bumps, all right? Now, I don't wanna bore you, but this is going to be the part that's gonna take a little bit, particularly if you're a rookie of some sorts with clay, all right? This is gonna take you a little while to get this down well, all right? Where you're just gonna constantly take it and you're gonna rake across it with the kidney tool, and then you're gonna reintroduce some moisture to it with your sponge, okay? There we go. So, I'm showing you this, but this still looks like junk to me. It's uneven from side to side. I wanna be able to turn this and it be kind of the same all throughout. But this is decent looking for now, as an intro, okay? Now what's gonna help you out later on down the road is we're gonna introduce one of these, especially in my next video, because we're gonna be able to put it down like this, and now I don't have to hold it, so I can get into it a little bit easier. I can rake across it just by spinning it on this as well, okay? So y'all, now you know how to create a basic pinch pot. You wanna take your time to perfect it out so that it is going to have a nice outside that's nice and smooth, that's even, has a nice inside that's free of lumps and bumps and cracks, and that's looking even too. Again, you can go ahead and you can stick this in there and use your fingers to smooth that out. In my next video, I'm gonna address this common concern, which is that rim right there. That rim is super jacked up. So I'm gonna show you in my next video how you're gonna go ahead and address this. All right? Thank you very much for watching this, y'all. This is the Art Mentor.